everyone. Welcome to another Monday Book Talk. My name is AnnaLee Dragon, and I'm the director of the Kinderhook Memorial Library. And for those of you joining us today, we're doing something a little special. Today is December 14th, 2020, which makes it the second anniversary of something we at the library have deemed Gary Spielmann Day. Now, Gary doesn't know that I'm doing this. This is a surprise for him since we can't hold a sort of program or anything to celebrate like we normally would in this year. So we're going to do a special Gary Spielmann book talk today. And I'm going to tell you a little about Gary and some of his interests and some of the books that he has enjoyed that I have heard about. And I had some help from his wife, Wendy, who was wonderful in helping sneak some information to me so we could bring this special talk to you. So December 14th, 2018 was the grand opening of our renovated and expanded library building. And on that day, the Board of Trustees gave Gary a plaque and named this Gary Spielmann Day in honor of his untiring efforts to improve the library and library services in our area. So Gary has been on our board for almost 15 years at this point and president since 2009. So all through the capital campaign and the building project and many 414 votes that helped increase our budget so we could support this wonderful facility that I work for. And he's just been a fantastic supporter, an excellent advocate. And we wanted to honor him today with a little something special with some of his favorite books from what I know and what Wendy knows. So buckle up, and we're going to do a little bit first about Gary himself so that you hear a little about him, and then we'll talk about some books that are some of his favorites, okay? So about Gary a little bit. He grew up in the Catskills in upstate New York, so we're not that far away from where he grew up as a kid. And the Catskills are where he first discovered his love of fishing, which is one of his main loves. He went fly fishing in the Beaver Kill, which is not that far from his childhood home. And it is also apparently known as one of the best trout streams in the United States, which I was unaware of. So we're all learning something today. He practices catch and release, and he has been fishing all over the world. So Wendy gave me a list. He has been in the US, all over, Canada, Iceland, Norway, Russia, New Zealand, and even on their honeymoon in Bora Bora, they went fishing. So this is a real hobby of his and one of the great joys of his life. Wendy says there is no place that he is happier than when he was on the river fishing. So of course, we're going to talk about some fishing books. Now, the caveat here being, I don't know anything about fishing really, and I have not read these books, but they're coming to you from a better source than me this time because they're coming from somebody who lives, breathes fishing, and that's Gary. So I have a few books that I'm going to put covers up for, and I'll just tell you the titles of them, and then we'll put a cover up. I'm not going to do a real book talk about them because I don't know as much about them, but they're all available in our library system for you to check out, and at least one of them is even available on Hoopla. So the first book we're going to talk about a little is The Land of Little Rivers, A Story and Photos of Catskill Fly Fishing. I chose that one first because that is the story of Gary, apparently Catskill fly fishing. So the author is Austin McFrancis, and here's the cover. Okay, so the next fishing book is again local to Gary and where he grew up specifically. So it's called The Beaver Kill, History of a River and Its People. And it's by Ed Van Putt. And here is the cover of that one. Okay, so the third fishing book that I have here, pulled from his collection, is The Dry Fly by Gary LaFontaine. And it's all about tying fly fishing flies. So here's the cover of that one. And lastly, from the fishing collection, we have Trout and Salmon of North America. And so here's the cover of that. Okay, so those are the fishing books, and those are drawn from his personal collection at home. Many thanks to Wendy for helping me snoop that out. But then I wanted to talk about, Gary is not a one-trick pony. He has lots of interests. And so he has been on the nonfiction book club here at the library for a very long time. And he frequently comes in, and I see which books they choose, but then he'll come in and talk to me about some of the ones that are ones he particularly enjoyed. So I pulled from memory a few that are sort of related to his more general interests. So the first one I wanted to talk about is The Sixth Extinction, An Unnatural History by Elizabeth Colbert. And this is a book that it's kind of a heavy read. Obviously, these are all nonfiction. That's the book club that he's in. This one is about the fact that she asserts, in the middle of a man-made modern sixth extinction. There have been 5 great extinctions throughout history, and she argues that we are in the middle of number 6 right now. And she has a lot of telltale signs. It's a lot about the environment and kind of markers, things that you should watch when you're trying to ascertain where the environment is at and how it is functioning or not functioning. I read this book too, and I learned a lot from it. There were just a number of things. Like, one of the things she talks about is the fact that amphibians are a very key marker. If the amphibian population somewhere plummets, that's bad, because amphibians are so closely related to their prehistoric predecessors that it's because they're so tough. They have lasted through many, many of these extinctions. So if you see the amphibian population suffering, there's an issue. And so she does some case studies of certain places in the world that have large frog populations or other amphibians, and kind of notes the problems that she's seeing and the things that are worrying her. So it is a heavy read for sure, but really interesting, and takes very kind of, I guess, high level science and makes it very understandable for the everyday reader like myself. So I loved this book, and I will put the cover up at the end of this as well, and you will be able to see which book I'm talking about. But it's fantastic. We have it. A lot of libraries in the system have it. So, and I think this speaks to Gary's love of nature and science. So you will get some of that from it when you get to check it out, hopefully. So those of you who know Gary, or if you don't, you will now know that another one of his interests is history in general. He is a big fan of nonfiction history books that come out, and he pays a lot of attention to what the newest thing is. And so this one isn't brand new anymore, but I remember when it was. Dead Wake by Erik Larson was a huge hit, and it's because Erik Larson is a fabulous nonfiction author. So he has brought us The Devil in the White City and a number of other books. He takes nonfiction, makes it super readable, thrilling page turners. And this one was about, I could have fit this in my lesser known history part of my book talk that I did a while ago. So it's about the sinking of the Lusitania during World War I by a German U-boat. And I guess it's just something I never learned about in history class particularly. And I was kind of shocked that I didn't know anything about it. So I learned a lot. And there are some conspiracy theories around this, which Erik Larson digs into. And that's something I always love too, is he doesn't just stick with the straight history. He tells you about some of these other side tangents that people have taken with it, and assumptions that have been made, and theories that have been posited. So Dead Wake by Erik Larson is another excellent book. And I remember when Gary read it and he came in and we talked about it because we both really enjoyed it. Okay, so the last book I wanted to talk about, I feel like encapsulates all of these interests in sort of one book. This one I would put under history. I would put it under, obviously, just general nonfiction, but also fishing and local history. So these are all areas of interest for Gary. And this book came out, and it's got such a local connection. So it's called The Feather Thief, and the subtitle is Beauty, Obsession, and the Natural Heist of the Century. I'm going to try that again. Beauty, Obsession, and the Natural History Heist of the Century. Say that 10 times fast. It's written by Kirk Wallace Johnson, and it's a really fascinating story. So the person who it's written about, his name was Edwin Rist. He was a 22-year-old kind of musical prodigy, very excellent at flute, I believe. He was a flautist and played on the international stage. He's from Claverack, so that's the really local connection. And it's about this bizarre piece of history where he became fascinated with tying fishing flies, especially Victorian fishing flies that are apparently made a lot with birds that are rare or extinct at this point, the feathers that you need. And there is sort of a black market for them, but he decided to make his own black market and robbed the Natural History Museum of Britain and stole almost 300 bird pelts and models, and then picked them apart and sold them online and used the feathers to make these ties. He was caught and tried, and I won't spoil the ending for you to know how it went, but it's a really fascinating story. They don't still 100% know how he did it, because there was only one window open and it would only have fit X-size suitcase, and they had all of these bird pelts, and how did he get them out, and did he have help or not? They never found anybody that they accused of assisting him, but it's just a really fascinating story, and it ties in fishing, see that? It ties in fishing and history and local history and the natural world. So I think it's like an excellent encapsulation of a book for the final book in the Gary Spielmann Day book talk. So The Feather Thief, I highly suggest that one. We have it and a bunch of other libraries own it. I think you'll really enjoy it if you haven't picked it up. And especially knowing that it's about somebody who's from right here. It's super interesting. So I think that that's all for today, but I just wanted to say my own personal thank you to Gary. He has been the board president since I was hired here almost 9 years ago. He is a supportive, enthusiastic, just magnanimous guy who has led our organization through really hard times and really great times and some really groundbreaking events like our new building. But then during the pandemic, he has been there for us. He comes in all the time. He's here to check on us and ask if we need anything. He is unfailingly supportive of the staff and myself. He has been my biggest champion all along, which I really appreciate because this job was my first director position, and it's really great to have somebody like him in your corner when you're starting out and who has faith in you even when you worry about yourself sometimes. So I just want to give a heartfelt thanks to Gary and to really congratulate him on everything he has accomplished here. I have no doubt this is not the end of everything. He will keep going and continue to amaze us. But thank you so much for all that you've done for us. And if you see Gary around town, please give him a congratulations and tell him happy Gary Spielmann Day, even if it's not today anymore. Let him know you saw the book talk. So I hope you all enjoyed this. We're coming up on the end of the year, and I have some fun things planned for the book talks at the end of the year here. We're going to look back and do some best ofs and some other fun things. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Gary for leading us, being our fearless leader. And thanks to Wendy for helping me put this together. I'll see you all next week, everybody.